welcome to the LiveCast Conversations With. On this show, my guests and I explore the bumps and triumphs of their journey to extract the gems from their experiences, because success leaves clues, and today we turn those clues into billboards for you. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, founder of Pealed Back, speaker and co-active coach, guiding leaders to ruthlessly pursue a life worth living. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 93. My guests today are Mike Prince and Trevor Turnbull. Mike is a husband, father of two young boys, and the founder of the Conscious Creator podcast and the Conscious Creator Experience. Trevor is a husband, father to two young boys as well, and the founder of the Trevor Turnbull Show and co-founder of Source Collective. They first connected as dads pushing the double-wide strollers on the streets of Glenrosa. That's for West Kelowna here. And they are the co-founders of the Extremely Conscious Retreat experience for men committed to truly living truly living the life. And they're also the co-hosts of the Cold Plunge of Truth, something that I got to experience in their episode 10. Yeah, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on my show today. There is no Cold Creek.
Yeah, it feels weird having shirts on and not being cold water.
Oh, I know, right? And then you said, do we have waters next to us right now? I was like, no, I don't actually. This doesn't feel right. I should go grab an ice cube or something from the freezer.
Well, hopefully we're not going to get that hot on this show here. But yes, I never thought about it. It's like our first experience together was topless, so...
Yeah,
that's true. That is true. Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. We'll link it up.
It's one way to break the ice, right? Is to just meet each other in the forest topless. I mean,
it worked, and next thing you know, we're now creating even more content together. So it's kind of cool where LinkedIn peer pressure can lead us to.
That's funny too. I was just thinking about that today, actually, because there's another person that Mike knows who's involved in the Source Collective you were just mentioning there, and she mentioned the word peer pressure today too, and it's not in a negative context. It was more, hey, you should really share that thing. And she said, oh, the peer pressure is thick here. And we're like, that's how we roll. We call people up around here.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, the idea of calling up that really resonates, especially after getting to meet you guys and have that conversation and see what you're creating. That seems to be like a big anchor for what you both are doing. Kind of, I'd love to invite you both to kind of share a little bit about, like, beyond how you met pushing those strollers, but what got you to being in this place of really wanting to call people up?
Go ahead, Mike.
Great question. Honestly, I think we both had slightly different paths to getting to this space, and it really spawned from our own individual journeys, kind of heroes' journeys, if you will, of something that we went through that really made us shift gears, right? And look inward a little bit and look at our lives and look at what's important and maybe what isn't important in our lives, and let certain things go and bring new things in. And throughout those journeys, we found better parts of ourselves and said goodbye to old parts that weren't serving us. And then in doing that, when we started our friendship, we had familiar conversations. Oh, wow, I went through something like that, or this is what I did when I went through X, and then I think when those conversations are spawned, you just really have the need and the want to bring it to others.
Right,
you do, and that's where we kind of connected as well, and it's grown, it's grown, and it still is, and so it's been really neat.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, the other piece that sticks out to me is I think both Mike and I have realized that the journey continues. Like it never, we're not defined by the past experiences, and we're still in the midst of this crazy thing we called life. So we both, I think, kind of hit a point where we said, we may as well make this a pretty kick-ass life. And what does that mean exactly? Does that mean we got to go jump out of planes and party our faces off and travel the world? And then, of course, the world told us, no, you're going to stay home for a while and do nothing for a while. So why don't you sit with your thoughts? And that's honestly, for me, and I think Mike can maybe agree, that
Yeah.
That's been one of the most challenging things, is like sit in the silence, actually listen to yourself and what's going on in this head and all of the stories we tell ourselves.
Oof. And that can be like a heavy place to be in, right? Because I don't know about you guys, my previous journey before coming to that conclusion, going, this is a good thing, is like, those are places I'd run away from, find distractions and find ways of numbing around not having to sit and listen to what those stories are, because what might they say?
Totally. Well, when Trev mentions, traveling the world, partying, doing the thing, that's, we each have a past of living life to the fullest, if you will, and a different definition. And that was all noise throughout those times, right? We weren't facing anything, we were probably creating more than we were, trying to look at anything. And that's what a lot of people go through. But we're fortunate enough in the category that we had, a moment that really woke us up to say, okay, maybe we should start looking at this. Maybe there's a reason I'm feeling a certain way, or not feeling a certain way, or feeling nothing at all.
Right.
Yeah.
While you were going through that initial like awakening, if you must, of like, okay, what is sitting with this? Was there like an overriding question that started to like seep up that you were starting to listen to that brought that questioning into your world?
Well, I could say, I was even going to mention this earlier, that I don't feel like there ever is one particular thing. It almost feels like just a snowball of snowball going down the hill kind of thing. And all of a sudden it's big. And you're like, damn, that thing's going to break some trees, metaphorically.
Yes.
Because, Mike's had his own experiences personally, as have I, and they're different, but they're similar, there's loss, there's death, there's identity crisis and everything in between. But I know for me, like, it's only been about 6 or 7 months when I really kind of hit a wall and said, I can't do this anymore, and specifically around the work side of things, where I just kind of hit that wall. And, I had my 10, 15 years experience doing what I was doing. I'm good at it, but I just wasn't enjoying it really that much anymore. And I knew I needed a shift. So that was the one thing, I guess, that started for me, was just a feeling of like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to this.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was similar. It started, as I say, I just wasn't really feeling much. I got to a point where I came into the new year, I was feeling a little bit overweight. I was maybe having a casual drink too often, nothing overboard, but just not really taking care of myself. And if you looked at, a classic societal definition of happiness, got a great house, great wife, amazing children, a good, well-paying job. I ticked all the boxes, of, oh, you should be happy. But I wasn't anywhere close to it, right? And so I just kind of started to look at things and say, okay, how do I correct this?
Right. How do you explore that and find I use the word courage, and it might not be the word that resonates with you guys, but like finding the courage to like sit with that discomfort, maybe for like some of the first times, because you're right, like when you come from a life where you're like, externally I have all the boxes checked, and to Trevor's question, going, what's this all for?
Yeah. Well, and I think what Mike and I really connected on the most, is that we had the courage to say out loud, and maybe it wasn't on the first time we met or even the second or the third time, Mike, but eventually one of us said something where you're like, that's a pretty deep question. I'll go there with you,
Yeah.
And it just kind of cracked that nut open to say, I think I can safely have that conversation with somebody that is also gone on a similar journey, although different. And when you have that and you're surrounded by it, that community that, obviously we've created the retreat that we have so far around connecting men, but like, who knows where we evolve this to? We don't see this as like, let's help the men of the world really tap into their true calling and who they are. I think this is a human being thing,
Yeah.
But we figured we'd start with guys, because we can do some cool stuff and go ride some e-foils. And not to say that women wouldn't want to do that, but we're certainly attracting a certain demographic with how we're promoting it, I guess you would say, right now.
Well, and I think there's a component of like leading from where you've been too, right?
Mm-hmm.
As two dudes, you can share and empathize, and people can go, okay, they've been where I've been. They have a good understanding, and you can lead them to like that step behind you, right? And I think that's what's really resonating with the messaging and what I'm hearing, what I've heard from you two in our own conversations on your show, and the experiences that we're seeing here today is there's a little bit of this, faith component to it, being like, I think there's something more, and then there's this trust that you two brought into each other, and now you're getting to bring that out to within these retreats and these podcasts and everything else that you're bringing out to it. So, we've kind of like touched around this retreat. So why don't we like dive right into that component of what was the catalyst or to go, oh my God, look what we've already accomplished. I wonder if we could do more.
Okay, I got to say this real quick before you jump in, Mike, because I think I might lead you into a nice next step. But you said the word trust, because the truth is that, although Mike and I both have own businesses now, managed people, coordinated things that needed coordinating. Like we had some experience, but I've never coordinated a retreat before. Have you, Mike?
No.
So when we came up with the idea, we just trusted that if we create it, they will show up. So there was this sense of, why don't we just create something that we would go to, and if nobody else showed up, we'd still have an awesome time. We might have a tough time explaining it to our wives, but at the same time, there was a huge component of trust. No different than us taking a commitment every week to go into the river. Like we're not Wim Hof. I don't know the biomechanics of cold plunging and what it does to your body, but we thought, hey, let's just go in and explore these topics. And I think we kind of both feel the same way right now. Like we say we're on this journey, and that's why I say I was going to maybe lead you in, Mike, because I know you've been on a journey even too of really leaning into what we have on these t-shirts and your podcast and all of the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
And it is like one step ahead. And in some cases, maybe we are behind even in certain areas, but just trusting that we'll figure it out.
Totally. And at the end of the day, right, that's what it's about, is, as you said, we're still in the middle of it. I had a crazy chaotic day today, and I don't know how many times I talked to myself, and I didn't get frustrated. I just flowed with it. I've driven up all the way across town and back, and what I needed to get done didn't get done, and so on and so forth. And but that's the point, is we're in this all together, and these other men at this stage that we're inviting in are from all walks of life. And Trev and I don't have all the answers. We're not perfect, but we're searching for them, and we're working through, and we're finding peak experiences, and we're finding these tools that do work and are helping us. And in turn, we get to serve others with those. Right. And that's what's pretty special about it, is we are all doing it together. And especially when we get into it, the ripple effect afterwards, I know, is what is going to be the most powerful, because of the sense of community and what's going to happen energetically when we're all in the same space as well. So that's going to be half the magic in itself, is having everybody in that one space.
Oh, 100%. There's going to be a lot of power in bringing how many spots are now filled with that? Or are you sharing that number out loud?
Yeah, with the two of us, and then the camera guys and stuff, there's like 12, I believe. We may end up with 14 or 15. We're not sure at this point. We'll see. We're good with what we have for numbers, but who knows? Some people might pop up at the last minute, and we'll make some decisions. But again, it's another thing of like, will we have enough space? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Will we have enough food? I don't know.
But I think within that, we've spoken about trust a couple times, is like you guys have a clear sense of like what the outcome is and the experience that you're trying to hold, and trusting, be like, well, we don't know all the steps to get there, but if we keep taking them every day, well, we're going to show something really magical is going to show up, because that's our goal, and let's keep working towards that.
I'll tell you, this was originally like a good year out. We were like, let's put a retreat together one day. And we thought about it. And then Trev and I had a little bit of a weekend where we went away and we did some e-foiling, spent some time just having a good hike and stuff. And Trev, being more of an action guy than I am, said, why don't we do this in 2 months? And I was just kind of like, I'm also a yes man. So I was like, okay. And I didn't have to think about it. But so it's certainly been day by day, figure out the details, right, and allow it to come together. But it really is, as you say, it's having that vision and having the faith to know it'll come together, because our intentions are right. And that's exactly how it's come with these individuals that have committed already. Within a week, we had, I think, 7 people committed. We were like, holy jumping. It was overwhelmingly awesome to see and get the exact answer in what we had thought of. People need this right now.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I'll maybe say this too, Gene, that there's an element of just trust and surrender and all of these words that I think Mike and I, and you included, are using and really aligning with, of like, well, had a crazy day. What are you going to do? Just surrender to it. But there's also an element of committed action that comes in with all of this, because like Mike said, you know, I definitely default to action sometimes because of just how I've conditioned myself over the years to just go, well, let's go figure it out. But the truth is everything that's gone on in the world in the last couple of years has condensed the possibilities of, you know, what you can create to be really, really amplified. You know, like we have people that are craving in-person connection right now because of this. So 2 choices. 1, look at all of the ways that this could go sideways, travel restrictions, like who knows what's going to happen. You know, I don't even want to say it out loud for jinxing purposes, but anything could happen right now that could cancel this thing in the next 10 days. Yeah. But if we don't move right now, I feel like we've missed an opportunity to actually create something that we both were desiring ourselves. Yes. And when we put the call out, people were like, I'm in. I've been needing this for a long time. Thank you for creating it. And we were like, whoa. And it wasn't even that surprising. It's just, you know, we had to start. We had to take committed action.
We had to put the call out. We had to put the energy out there.
Yeah, that we had to start. You know, where that speaks to me from Trevor is this place of like leadership for the 2 of you, right? Like somebody has to start, and like all things that we have today, the fact that we're doing this through our browsers, sharing it out across potentially hundreds, if not thousands of people one day could watch this because somebody started.
Yep.
Right. And we can bring that into like all areas of our life. It's like you're here today because you started questioning, going, is there more? Is this what happiness is? What does happiness mean? What is fulfillment? How do I surrender and still have this space between surrender and taking action and all these powerful like places? You had to get started.
Yeah, you do. You got to get started. And, you know, I know on my journey and exploration into this, there has to be more space. We naturally just turn to intellectual, like, well, let me go watch some videos and read some books and ask questions and stuff. And I know I kept running into a wall where I was like, I don't know what question to ask. Like, I just feel it, you know, there was a feeling. And like, I feel very blessed that we get to be able to do this. And I'm also from the digital space as you are too, that, you know, I remember how hard this was to do 10 years ago. Like extremely difficult. I got to pull up some of those old videos of using my Ustream in a car, and it's crazy. But what an amazing time to be alive. You know, like we can have conversations, stay connected, create anything that we want. You just got to be brave enough to move and know that it's going to be messy. It has to be, or else it's not. Usually it's not even fulfilling. If something's almost too easy, sometimes it feels like it wasn't worth it.
Right.
I want it to be a struggle with it.
It's not real.
Yes.
It's not real if you don't have that challenge, right? And all the myriad of beautiful things in between.
Well, hearing, you know, those words, guys, like the question that comes up for me is like, what has the definition of fulfillment become now for you?
It's a deep one, Gene.
Good question. I can certainly start there. I mean, for me, of fulfillment, I really, it's connection. If I had to choose kind of one word, it's connection, because connection really spawns in the various parts of my life. You know, connection with my 2 young boys, connection with my wife. These things have all changed. Connection with other like-minded individuals like Trev and yourself. Connection with the people I lead at work, right? All of these pieces weren't there before. Not that they weren't there, they weren't quality, they weren't as effective, because the place, maybe I was leading from or making decisions from was the mind instead of the heart, and so I think connection is a key one there, and that's, as humans, a massive place that you could go back in history. It's what brings us all together.
We are social animals, right? And at its core, that connection is important. And I think there's some real power to be explored deeper within that. I heard the word quality, and kind of like in my mind, I hear this upscaling of not just your skills, but the ability of your connections and who you're making those connections with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and
What
I think
for you, Trev?
Yeah, for me, I think when I heard the word fulfillment, it's changed for me over time, because I might have said before, fulfillment is moving to Costa Rica and making this much money and growing this, all these things, and not necessarily material, but even just milestones in a life of like, fulfillment is accomplishing that goal. But I think how I've redefined it in the last 6 months is it's more about inner peace. It's that idea that everything is happening for me, not to me. And all of these stumbles along the way are actually here to serve me if I just recognize them, because that's something that I see in other people even too, as I work with them through my work. And even with what Mike and I are doing now with the retreat, is that there's going to be people coming to our retreat that have amazing lives right now. They got beautiful cars and houses and wives and families and everything in between. But then they also have these other things, these darker pieces that maybe they don't want to talk out loud about, or they feel shame over, or whatever, instead of actually seeing those things as helping get them exactly where they are right now. Right. So all the experiences from the past, the current, and the future, it's all divine. It's all here to serve us. But will we see it? Will we see it? Are we too much in here? And that for me has been probably the biggest challenge that I've faced, because I'm just naturally kind of I'm going to go create my reality. And then I have to go, wait a second, why don't you slow down and see what's already in front of you, and stop trying to push in a direction that the universe is telling you to slow down.
Right. Instead of fighting the universe and fighting that message, you're slowing it down. And I hear that within this, I hear like this receptiveness to it. Whereas when you were going, it was just like, this is my will and I'm going to deploy it come hell or high water. And now you're listening for it going, I still have this strength and this like warriorness to go create. But now where does this align, and how does this make me feel and still be this doing, right? I hear what keeps coming up in my mind is that, I think it's Tony Robbins that says this, but it's like, you can either be, we're used to being a human doing, now let's be a human being.
I love that. And I think I think Trev started to allude to it there, but we both come from the same world of sales, and, we've been shaped and molded others, years ago, to that. It is, as you said, Gene, it's a constant drive, right? It's push, more hours equals more results. And, previously, if we were getting frustrated, okay, let's pick up the next mindset book of, some more good habits I should create, and so on, and more and more and more and more. Right. And now it's absolutely very different. It's stepping back, it's observing, it's creating space for creativity. And, we can accomplish so much more now because we're doing it from, that space.
Right.
And that new, with the new intentions as well. And, there's not generally getting overwhelmed, because we are allowing things to flow as well. And certain things that, maybe would stress us out previously, we now know it's all going to be okay. In the grand scheme of things, everybody's happy, healthy. This is not going to change the world. That one client that's unhappy we can only do what we can do, right? Or if we don't hit our numbers X, like, so it really is a massive perspective shift.
Yeah. And I don't think our lives are perfect by any means either. Let's be clear. You know, like Mike and I both have boys that happen to be around the same age, and I was helping him move a couch because we live like 2 doors down from each other. So I was helping him move a couch, and his kids were going nuts. And I just said to him, man, it's sure nice to see that other people's kids act like this at 8 o'clock at night. It's just the truth. Like it's just chaos, you know?
Yeah.
And then I just think
sure, you guys, you've got the younger ones. It doesn't get any less chaotic. It just gets later in the night.
We're sponges. Yeah. We're here to absorb all the advice that we can possibly get. But I just think of it even in the context of like, how do we become, you know, just like the t-shirt says, conscious creators of everything in our lives, like better husbands, better fathers, better men in this world, all of these things. And I know Mike and I have both experienced this in putting out the call, even for the retreat. We had a few people that were like, I'm in, done. Where do I sign up? And then a few people that are like, geez, that sounds really good. But you know what? I got a golf trip this weekend or that weekend. Or, yeah, you know, I just can't make it work. And they're choosing to make other decisions over actually prioritizing themselves. And I guess the point I wanted to make on that is that as men, we have guilt sometimes of actually prioritizing ourselves and actually putting ourselves first, knowing that it serves everybody around us.
Yes.
And that just comes from this desire to be, you know, the caretaker, the provider, all of that. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. And I believe, honestly, Mike, that's intentional on our journey here, even too, to hear all that resistance, you know, because we probably heard no 80% of the time, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always that common theme. It was either a guilt over like, I can't do that. You know, I got to take the family camping that weekend. And there's 19 other weeks that you can go to. And while we get it, you know, like there's schedules and we got run busy lives, but we heard everything that you could possibly imagine under the book as to why people couldn't show up for themselves. But that's why we'll keep doing more retreats, because we'll say, cool, come to the next one.
Yeah, totally. And that's it. It is something that, you know, sometimes take people time to realize that. And the neat part about something like this is that, or any of the work we do for that matter, now from the place that we do it authentically, right? And not trying to sell people, is that people will come when they're ready. Yeah. You know, and so that's what's really special about what we do. And frankly, if they're not ready, I don't think we want them there, because, you know, it's the magic that's created with, you know, a bunch of individuals that are ready to commit and really lean into the process is where it all happens from. And so but it has certainly, we've you know, observed so many of these responses and just kind of digested them and sat back a little bit and let them sink in, and they're okay. You know, it's okay, because it is. And we've used them before too. Let's be real.
We've all been there. I think I think I'm the camping guy. Anyways, right?
Well, I made that reference because I think I heard that from 3 or 4 people actually, but all of them that actually live locally here in the Okanagan. So when you start to look at the actual dynamics of all of that, you think, this is quite a popular camping place. Everybody owns a camper in this area.
We originally had a trip booked that weekend too, actually. True story. Yeah.
You know, but there's like a couple themes that really come up from sharing that, is like there's this like guilt and shame in there, but there's also when you're doing like the part of this is a sales, but that what I hear from the shift is it's not this hard sales, it's an invite for an enrollment to, like, you want to enroll these people to the experience. And if they're saying not right now, well, what they've just kind of committed, even though they might not realize, is like, well, it's just not right now, but it could be next time or the time after that, right? Mm-hmm. And so now you have this place to go, cool, I see you, and you've also helped us define what a strong yes means as well. Like, you want a bunch of people at these things that are fuck yeses, not like, maybe, yeah, sure, right? Because fuck yes energy is going to take that to that next level.
Big time. Yeah. And we both had a couple of people like that were literally within 5 minutes of messaging them. they were like, "Okay, I've paid everything." But whoa, okay, cool, that's awesome, like amazing, you know. And then, of course, we had the in betweens, but yeah, I think as we go through this and we grow to future events, there's going to be a lot more fuck yeses.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say too, that now that we've, locked in the people that we have, we're in the next phase, because we didn't pre-plan any of this stuff. We didn't have any like, here's your manual on and your map on how to get there and all that. We're like, shit, I guess we better put that together now.
Yeah.
And we do that and we put it out to everybody. And naturally, some people jump right on signing the waiver, because we are doing some stuff where we're going to have to wear helmets and we'll be out in the water. And it is the extremely conscious retreat after all. But you start to see the little idiosyncrasies of people and how they're showing up before they even show up, like wanting to know all the details, like who's going to be there and what's the sleeping arrangements and where it can, you know what I mean? And that'll be something that we'll address. Like we'll face it head on when we're at the retreat, as well as like, where is there a lack of trust in your life that you believe that you need to have all the answers before you actually move forward on something? And we can say these things out loud because we're guilty of them ourselves, or we've at least been there before, right? It's not to call people out again, it's to call people up.
I just love that we started that with the call up and versus the call out. Has that been yourselves a big shift around switching from this call out to this call up?
I think, absolutely. If I look at a huge shift in myself personally, I can say from an honest, sincere place, I don't judge people anymore. I might by accident, sure, if I have a moment, but genuinely, I truly, and if I do, I'll be conscious, I'll catch myself. But and I think that's part of it, right? Because calling someone out is from a space of judgment. Right, versus calling them up is from a place of wanting them to be better and shoulder to shoulder and saying, how can I help? How can I be of service in that process? Versus just blatant judgment, right? And so there's definitely been a huge shift there for me.
Mike, how has that shifted with your own internal speak to yourself?
In terms of how I look at myself.
Yeah.
Rather, it's been similar. It's not looking at myself in a harsh way, but giving forgiveness to myself. Right. I think that's a huge piece of it. Is again, we are our harshest critics always. Period. Right. And how we treat others is a reflection of how we look at ourselves. Bottom line. And so for me, life is a process, and growing and changing who you are is a massive process. So we need to be very forgiving and loving throughout that process with ourselves, because if we're not going to win and we're not going to grow, because we're constantly pushing and putting ourselves down. Right. So it's that ego battle again as well, because it's it wants to win.
Oh, yes. And it hates change too, right? So you almost have to sneak up on it sometimes and hold it down and be like, we're doing this, just watch and learn.
Slow and steady. Yeah, but great question.
Yeah. And I'll maybe add to what you were asking there earlier too. So Mike and I obviously both have a background in sales. So the idea of calling out versus calling up, it becomes very relevant in that space, right? Because I've been in sales, well, really, if I go back to my retail job since 1999. So what is that now? It's 23 years or something. So I've learned all of these different things from, really well-intentioned people that were teaching me NLP and art of persuasion and here's another sales book and, how to overcome the no and all that kind of stuff. But the best sales advice that I ever got, and I'm looking at this quote here right now, was from a mentor of mine where he said, you're either buying into someone's limiting beliefs, stories, and smallness, or you're enrolling them into the future version of their greater self. And that is the definition of calling up, right? Wow. Because when you do that, the people that you're calling up, they're not going to like that you're doing it a lot of times. In fact, it's going to really irritate them, in a way that just maybe it doesn't make them mad, but just makes them go, damn it, he's right. And I just spent the last hour saying all of the things that were leading to a yes. And then I said, no, where else does this show up in my life? You know, where else am I out of integrity? And that, as soon as I heard that from a mentor, I was like, oh, sales is easy. Sales is just an enrollment into somebody's greatest version of themselves. And if they choose not to do it, that's for them to sleep with.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oof. That's the mic drop moment out of many, but like,
yeah,
that it looked like that hit both Mike and I at the same level. Like that's inviting them to see the bigger version of them, and standing in on that, beside that bigger version, going, it's right here. Let's go meet it together.
Yeah. And I think when you came into the cold plunge with us into the river, that was kind of how we ended our conversation even too, was speaking about like, where does this show up in the world? And I think about how many people that have made the choice to become the writers of their own story. You know, they're no longer in a job. I'm now a coach, a consultant, whatever it is. And we default to learning. It's just learn, right? Instead of actually training and getting in the trenches and hearing no and taking your licks and knowing that everything that you want's on the other side of that. But we get so scared of it. And that's really it. It's just lean into it. You know, all the scary stuff, everything you want's on the other side of all of that.
Oh, 100%.
Again, hence the extremely conscious retreat, because I'm going to be scared a few times during our retreat. Not that we're doing anything too dangerous, but that was where kind of the, you know, I think Mike and I, when we both said it out loud at one point, we were like, that sounds aligned. That I think that is what this should be called.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like nothing great is going to be ever, you know, achieved through that. I choose the word weakness here, but that's not even the right word. But like
comfort,
meekness, and comfort, right? Like
safe.
From that safe space is like there's not growth there. If there is, it's like puny. And where I like about the quote I think you shared on our hike down as well was like learning, practice, training.
Yeah.
And like you can't stay in one of those three forever. You got to be like cycling through it, and that's part of it. Is like when you're learning, that's like the safest spot. Practice, be like, yeah, you're gonna get a few bumps and bruises. Training, be like, training's gonna give you the best gems and the best experience to be able to listen and take that back to that beginning of the learning. Going, okay, how did life hit me this time? Cool. How do I prepare? How do I handle this? How do I keep getting back up? Why do I keep getting back up? Is like, I think that's that bigger part over it's why over how sometimes. Not sometimes, all the time.
Yeah. We won't share all the secret information of what we have planned, because the truth is we haven't figured it out yet. but
it's
I know
a surprise for everybody.
Exactly. But I know Mike and I are aligned on the fact that when it will be a powerful weekend. And when people show up and they declare their intentions going forward, and we all go off in our cars and go back to our lives and stuff, that we now have a bunch of brothers that are there to hold us up. And, you know, while our purpose is to create that resilience ourselves, man, it's sure nice to have people that, you know, that have your back and that will say, hey, you said you were going to do this. Why did you choose not to do that? You know?
Yeah.
You let yourself down. You let me down, you know, and like, let's go. Let's go create some change in this world. Let's raise some pretty amazing kids that will end up inheriting this world from us as well.
I love that. And I just like that sense of like playing with fire in such like it's a forge. It's an opportunity to create a forge together.
Totally. It's, and we want to talk about calling up. Now we've got 10 more people to call us up, and we can call them up, right? It's that accountability piece, and the you know, we all know the saying, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around, and so we all want to try to find that higher circle, right? And the more we can keep leveling that up and leveling others up, we know it's an elevation game in a positive direction.
Yeah. Well, it gives you that thing to that opportunity to strive for, right? And I think it ties right back to your connections, and you talked about the quality of those connections is by being around the people that you're like, wow, those are the qualities I'm looking to have more of or experience more of, it does. It calls you up towards that, and you can continue to evolve and explore and see just how big that range could really be.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's massive. And I mean, as we get older, and that's what we look for, is those, as I said, quality connections, right? Versus a drinking buddy or a buddy to have a beer with. A beer's good for a beer, but the conversation's not flowing, I'm out.
Exactly.
It's just doesn't cut it anymore, right? And that time is a very valuable resource in our lives. And where we spend it, where we put our energies, and where we receive our energies, this becomes very very high priority.
Yeah, it just continues to the theme of this conversation so far has been like these redefinitions of those experiences, and within that, Mike, I hear like this redefinition of what quality means as well, from this place of being versus that doing is very transactional. Being screams relationship.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, you know how at the start of the show I said we were going to blow past the 40-minute mark? Well, we're almost at the 42-minute mark like I predicted. So this has flown by extremely quickly. And I want to thank you both for being on the LiveCast Conversations with today. And before we get too carried away with our last question, an opportunity to give a shout out. We've talked about the retreat, but here's a time to shout out the retreat because the links are down below as well. But the other stuff you guys have got going on, because you've got a lot on your plates right now.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Absolutely. Sure, thank you. Not quite launched yet, but I do have my own podcast coming, which I'm very, very excited about, called the Conscious Creator Podcast. So you can already find it on most streaming sites, and feel free to follow along nice and early, but nothing's live for another month and a half or so now. But I'm super excited to get that launched, because it's along the lines of the conversation we had today, and many other conscious conversations, and some great guests to be on there and have these types of discussions.
That's awesome.
So thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure was all mine. Trevor?
Yeah, I'll just mention, so like extremelyconscious.com is the website that you had linked up there. That will stay constant. So as we create new experiences, you'll be able to see it all there, get notified of everything. Of course, we're doing the Cold Plunge Truth, and we were just talking about it this morning. Like, we're moving to Costa Rica here in August, and I said, I'm not missing a week, man. I'm gonna find a nice guy down there. I don't know where, but I'm gonna figure it out. And we will put out a call for people to join us too, and that'll end up becoming a landing page or something. But you can find us on YouTube, and then the other main thing two things, I guess, is my podcast. So I do the Trevor Turnbull Show, and publish once a week right now. Might do a few more going forward, a few more shows. Then of course the Source Collective, which is just thesourcecollective.net, which is really, just it exists to support you in your evolution. So every single person has this higher version of themselves that already exists. You just get to believe it, and you get to surround yourself with other people that will hold you high and call you up, and then wrap the whole business side of it around it, so you can actually create that freedom business that we all desire, right? Everybody that I talk to says that they want to go and do what I'm doing. And I say, well, yeah, this didn't happen overnight. It took 15 years of like really committed focus. But at the same time, it doesn't need to take 15 years. This is the most amazing part about the world we live in. You can make a choice now and be down there in the next 3 months, 6 months, making good money and living the life.
Love that. So definitely everybody else down below, you'll find those links, and we'll put them up in the show notes on the other platforms as well. So gentlemen, the only scripted question we have is the last one. So we're going to jump into my time machine. We're going to go into the future by 10 years. When the door opens, you get to meet your future selves. What are they going to say thank you for doing? Actually, I'm going to rephrase that. What are they just going to say thank you for you?
I can start on that. I would say they're going to tell me, thank you for saying goodbye to your ego and really walking into an authentic space because in the short span of the last year and a half that I've started doing this work, the changes have been incredible, and the ripple effect in small areas so far have been amazing. And so I know with certainty that I'm going to be in a very, very, very different place 10 years from now. And it's all because of what I'm doing right now and what Trev and I are doing right now, and this conversation and the many others that are going to happen just like it. Great question.
Yeah. And for me, I think the thing that comes to mind is just, thank you for trusting that you already had the answer. You just needed to go deeper because maybe you didn't see it yet. Because I know that the challenges and the pains that I've experienced in life, they might pale in comparison of what's coming. But at least I have this perspective now of knowing that all of this stuff is here for me to take one look at from one direction or another one. And I get to just trust that I'm on the right path. And yeah, that's what comes to mind for me.
Those are powerful answers, guys. Thank you so much for going down that thought exploration with me. And everybody else, thank you for watching LiveCast Conversations With. This was episode 93. And until next week, we'll see you there. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you.